One thing I love about this book, it is an early book and it goes through the actual narrations, not just saying this is the ruling and this is the ruling. Now, this is the we're doing our first ever book, that an Islamic finance book. I know there's a lot of brothers that are very interested in learning about how Islamic economics work and how Islamic finance in the halal way works, and how everything from zakat to kharaj to developing yourself as a Muslim businessman, and how to deal with the fiqh of business works. So I got an unboxing from one of the earliest books written on the subject that was dedicated to this subject. Now, this is written by a great scholar, a very early scholar, Al-Imam, Al-Hafid, they call him the Hujjah, the big evidence for Islam, Abu Ubaid, but his actual name is Al-Qasim ibn Salam. Now, very interestingly, he is very, very early on. In the time of the Salaf al-Salihin, he was born in 157 Hijri. He died in 224 Hijri. And guess where he was born? In Herat, current day Afghanistan, which tells you Khurasan and that region of current day Afghanistan, and north of it to Uzbekistan, and south and west of it into Faras, had such a rich academic background, a scholarly powerhouse of the time. Now, regarding him himself, he was very early and he studied with a lot of the great scholars of Islam. He traveled with Yahya bin Ma'in. He went to Egypt. He spent so much time in Baghdad that many times with his name you'll find al-Baghdadi. He traveled all over the Muslim world, taking the knowledge from the likes of Shafi'i and others. And a lot of times people mention that he is Shafi'i, although some of his rulings you do find a lot of influence from the Maliki madhab as well, which is also interesting because that means that area of Herat and Khurasan wasn't strictly Hanafi as we see it today. Rather, we have a rich history of other madahib, Hanabila and others having great scholars that are called Khurasani, and Shawafi and Maliki, and of course the Hanafi madhab is there and has been there for generations, right? So what about this particular book is important is, one, he was born in 157 Hijri. I mean, we're talking about a very early scholar, and he wrote a whole book, Kitab al-Amwal. And we're going to open it up. It's still covered. I saved it for the unboxing. This print has 2 volumes. I like the print a lot. I mean, I haven't opened this one yet, but before I buy any book, I research the print house, the muhakkik, the best paper, and the best research that's done on it. So inshallah, you're going to love this, and I'm going to love this, and I've been dying to open this, but I've been saving it for you because I wanted to do this unboxing and educate the people about Islamic finance. One of our brothers, our brother Amin, and a brother from Sam from the UAE, we've been working together a lot on looking at the correct Islamic rulings about different Islamic projects. He has a really good project. It's not a sponsored video, but the brother is doing very good work. I'm going to put a link to his project in the description. If you want to know about halal ways to invest, it's good to support the brother who's trying to do things in the authentic, correct halal way. Okay, so this is, again, like I said, it's in 2 volumes, Kitab al-Amwal of Al-Hafid, the great scholar. He's famous, known as Abu Ubaid, but his name is Al-Qasim. Let's take a look at the paper. Again, I always like to read on the cream-colored paper. It's much easier on the eyes. I know a lot of people are like, oh, what does it really matter? But if you read a lot, it does matter. The straining of the eyes is always an issue. This has an excellent takhrij that's been done. So I'm going to take a look at this and show you. The work having been done by Sayyid Ibn Rajab is really well done. So if you can see the pages here, the unique thing about this work, even though it's really a fiqh work, it's actually a collection of a hadith, but with it, a collection of the statements of the Sahaba and scholars after them as well. So he will mention a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, then he will continue with the entire sanad. Hadathna Sufyan ibn Awayna an ibn Ta'us an Abihi an ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. So gives you the entire chain, and then it gives you a statement of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. So it has hadith and statements of Sahaba radiallahu anhum together. Then it has the checking of that hadith. So it will say isnaduhu da'if, yani this isnad is weak, or isnaduhu sahih, this is sahih. Then it will give you references to other books of hadith like Ad-Darqutni and others that's mentioned here. So he will give you references to other books of hadith if you want to further research the actual chain. Now, what Al-Qasim ibn Salam does is he gives you statements of early scholars of Islam as well, and he'll give you the chain from who he heard that statement. So not just the hadith, but even the statement of Sahaba have chains. Now, if there is a weakness, he will say munqati'. For example, the muhakkik, Sayyid ibn Rajab, what he did is he will put that this hadith has a break, and he'll tell you Musa ibn Talha la yadrak Mu'adhan. Yani this hadith, it's reported from Musa ibn Talha from Mu'ad ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, but he says that Musa ibn Talha never met Mu'ad ibn Jabal, so there's a break in the chain there. He points that out, and he'll give you the details about that. Now, what I liked also in many of the things, he'll say Hasan li ghayrihi. He will say it is Hasan due to supporting evidences, and he'll give you other narrations to show you why it is acceptable. Now, a unique feature in the takhrij here, he will say as-sahih an Malik. So if Al-Qasim ibn Salam gives the statement of Imam Malik, and the madhab of Imam Malik takes a different statement, in the checking, he will give you what is the madhab of Imam Malik. And that's really beneficial. Now, again, one thing I love about this book, it is an early book, and it goes through the actual narrations, not just saying this is the ruling and this is the ruling. Now, this is the second volume, so it also has the table of context, which is really beautiful because it gives you the hadith, so you can look up with the hadith, or through the narrator, or through the mas'ala. So, I mean, there's so many. So this is every narrator and which pages narrations from that narrator are upon. So really cool, easy to find what you're looking for. And that's something I love as well, is the ease of being able to use the book. Now, this is the first volume. As you can see, there is this is the narration, just this part. And all of that is the tahqiq and takhrij and the checking and what is the riwayah of Shafi'i and what is the riwayah of Malik and Abu Hanifa and Imam Ahmad. It's not a sharh, it's not a full explanation, but it does give you some beneficial points. And I always find that very interesting. Now, at times, there'll be a hadith and he will say, Sahih ila Abi Darda. It is authentic up to Darda, but past it, there are issues in connectivity all the way to the Prophet ﷺ, which would be what we consider a mursal hadith and so on. So he will state, for example, here, that the hadith is mursal or munqati' or da'if, and why is it weak? Great. I love the book, but again, it's very important to get a good tahqiq on the book, a good checking, because if you don't, then a lot of times hadith are weak and you don't realize that. A lot of times there are manuscript errors. But books like this, also in the introduction, will go over the manuscripts and scan them for you. So you see scans of the handwritten manuscripts of these works so that you know that they have checked it, to make sure, looking at all the different manuscripts in the different libraries where they are. And as you can see, they went through quite a few different manuscripts to make sure the accuracy of the book that is being presented to you. All that is really important from an academic perspective. So, Kitab al-Amwal of the great Imam and Hafidh Abu Ubaid al-Qasim ibn Salam, a great scholar, very early on, 157 Hijri to 224 Hijri, one of the great fuqaha of the Shafi'i madhab, as well known. And on top of that, a great print that is printed here. This is, I got this from Darul Huda and Nabawiyah. This is a print house. You can find it in many other places. We'll put a scan of the book for you as well. The last thing I'll say on this, the great scholar, Abu Ubaid al-Qasim ibn Salam, if you don't know who he is, you need to learn about these great scholars. He wrote amazing works like this that were groundbreaking works. He wrote one of the first books ever on qiraat, on the different styles of recitation, on gharib al-hadith, on the unique wordings that are used in a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that even the Arab of that time may not understand. So to explain those unique words, he wrote in that. He wrote on nasikh and mansukh, on abrogation, when hadith that come at a different time, and ayat and ahkam rulings that were abrogated. And he wrote amazingly on jarh wa ta'dil. He was a great scholar of judging the narrators of hadith and so on. So an amazing scholar. He wrote a book called Al-Iman, which is a book in Aqidah, which shows that he was Athari. He followed the evidences and he made rad of the Mu'tazila and other people, the Jahmiyyah and people of Bid'ah, especially during the fitna of Khalq al-Quran. So these are great treasures left behind by great men who served the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's upon us to learn about them and benefit from them. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.